What's good, R&B squad? This is out of Ruth. I trust that this message meets you guys in good spirits. If you are new here, welcome. We're happy to have you, and Jesus is, of course, always happier. I'm going to raise my voice because it started raining as soon as I started to record this word. So I do hope that you guys can hear me okay. So the rain just calmed down a little bit. So praise God for that. And this word was actually given to me based on the book of Esther. The Lord has been speaking to me about the book of Esther, the entire book of Esther. And some of you for whom this is for need to read the entire book of Esther, okay? So if you know the book of Esther, you know, of course, it started with this young girl, Esther, this young woman, beautiful young woman, woman of God, being taken in with a group of women to meet with the king, because he was looking for a queen. He had just separated or gotten divorced from Queen Vashti. And because of that, he was looking for a wife. He was looking for a queen to take Vashti's place, to really take her rightful place, actually, because she was always supposed to be with the king, okay? Vashti was just someone that occupied this space for a time. And before I get into the word itself, let's focus on that a little bit. I know that for some people it is hard to understand how a position that someone else is currently occupying or once occupied could actually be for you or actually be for someone else. It's a lot of folk that don't quite understand how that works, okay? So let me just paint a scenario for you guys so that you'd understand. Imagine that you have a relative that you don't know about. Your relative passes on and they leave you a property because you don't know of them, but they know of you. They know that you're their next of kin. So they leave that property to you. They have a will. They leave the property to you. You have no idea that this property even exists, and you do not even know this relative. So you have no clue that you have a property that has been left to you, that has been legally and lawfully and rightfully left to you. So the relative done gone on and died and left the property to you. No one told you that the property was yours. You have no information stating that the property is yours, even though it's legally yours, even though the will says that it's yours because you're the next of kin. You have no idea. So you just go on about your life, living your life without knowing that you actually have ownership of this property, okay? Somebody else comes along and they realize that the property is unoccupied. It's unoccupied, and they don't bother asking who the rightful owner is. They just move on in there and they start living in there. Okay? Now, to anyone looking in from the outside, they would think that that person occupying that property, that it's rightfully theirs, not knowing that this person just came along, saw this property, assumed it was abandoned, and just moved into it. Okay, there are some people like that. As soon as they see a space and it looks vacant, they're just going to move in. They don't care whom it belongs to. All right, so this person comes along, they see your property that you do not know is your property, that you do not know has been legally left to you, and they move on in there and start living in there without permission from anyone. So then when the time comes and you happen to find out that that's your property, you are in your legal right to have them removed, to have them evicted. It is the same with the kingdom. Some of you, there are things that God meant for you, things that He promised to you, that you have no idea is yours. You have no idea that it is yours. Okay? Maybe because you were leaning to your own understanding. Maybe because for some reason you just weren't aware. Okay? But at this point, the Lord is letting you know that that thing is yours. Somebody else may have moved up in there, into that position, into that place, with that person. Yes, I'm going to go there. And it wasn't legally theirs. It was not God. And when I say legal, I mean legal in terms of what God says is legal and what He says is not. Okay? Because man's legality and God's legality are two entirely different things. So there's that. God did not declare that thing, that place that they're occupying, to be legally theirs. It is legally yours. The Lord promised it to you, not them. Because you were leaning to your own understanding and you were unaware that God promised you this thing, they moved on in there like a thief and decided to occupy the spot. But when the Lord gets to telling you that that's your spot, that's when it's time for eviction. That's when it's time for eviction. That's what happened to Vashti. That was always Esther's spot. That was always Esther's spot. There was just an appointed time for her to occupy that spot. And when that appointed time came around, for such a time as this, Esther 4:14, Vashti had to go. It was eviction time for Vashti. And I'm just going to leave that right there and get into the rest of the word, okay? So, in particular, the Lord highlighted to me Esther chapter 8, verse 1. On that day, the king gave the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther, the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. So, for some of you, here's the thing. We focus so much on the fact that Esther received the crown. But we focus less and less, or not at all, on the fact that not only did she receive the crown, but her next of kin, her family, her people received the spoils of their enemies. And when I say the spoils, the things that the enemies of the Jews, the enemies of God's people, had received either through trickery or they'd received through deceit, like Haman, for example. Everything that Haman had, that the king gave to him, he received it through deceit. He did not mean well for the king, but he pretended to. And that's why he had all that stuff. But when everything came out in the open and Haman was put to death, what happened? Not only did Esther have the crown, she also had the spoils of the enemy. Everything, all of Haman's riches, everything that Haman was able to gather for himself through deceit, Esther and her people, God's people, now had it. Esther and her tribe, God's tribe, now had those things in their possession. So for some of you, there's going to be some dethroning and displacing and evicting going on for some of the people around you. Some of the people that are occupying places and positions that you're supposed to be in, they're about to be evicted. And the Lord gave me a timeline, okay? He highlighted the month of Nisan, the month of the first fruits. Now, in our time, according to the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar that we follow in this world, that happens to be the period of March to April. So right when winter is wrapping up and spring is just getting started. Okay? For some of you, all of this is going to go down between March and April, between the ending of winter and the beginning of spring. That's your timeline. God gave it to me plainly. The Lord also mentioned the triple braided cord to me. So for some of you, for many of you whom this word is for, a lot of this stuff that is going to take place has to do with your kingdom marriage. For such a time as this, the Lord is bringing these unions together because there's something pressing that the two of you have to come together to do for his kingdom. For his kingdom, ultimately, that is what it's about. It's not just for the two of you to love on each other. You're going to have time to love on each other, but it's something pressing that's about to go down where God's people are concerned, and the two of you need to come together to deal with that. Now, King A and Esther, for some of you, it's King Xerxes. You know him as King Xerxes. So for King A for some of you, and King Xerxes for those of you who know him as that. King A or King Xerxes and Esther, they had already been married when all of this craziness started to go down. Do you see what I'm saying? They had to already have been married. Otherwise, they would not be able to come together and partner with God and deal with it. That triple braided cord. Okay? So with that in mind, and there's like some noises going off in the background, guys. So I hope that you guys can still hear me. Hold on to my voice. But back to what I was saying. If they had not come together, that triple braided cord had not come together at that time, at that appointed time, they would not have been able to deal with the pressing matter at hand. All these people were about to lose their lives. All of God's people were about to lose their lives. Esther and King A, or King Xerxes, had to be together in order to prevent that. So for some of you, God is going to quicken this thing. He's going to hasten your marriage. He's going to hasten these kingdom partnerships. Because for some of you, it's not just marriage. He's partnering you up with other people. Divine connections, divine friendships, God ordained connections that are happening in this hour. People that need to come together as husband and wife, yes, but also as friends, as sisters and brothers in Christ, so that God's pressing matters can be dealt with at this time. Okay? So if y'all read the book of Esther in its entirety, it's a number of things that are getting ready to go down in the month of Nisan. That is between March 2024 and April 2024. For some of you, you're going to be hearing this beyond 2024. You might be hearing this in 2025. You might be hearing it in 2026. Whenever you hear it, just know that God is talking to you at that time. That if you happen to see this word way a year from now or 2 years from now, then that means that you're in that season at that time. Okay? But for those of you that are hearing this right now, I don't believe that's an accident. I don't believe it's an accident. It's a lot of stuff that's about to go down between March and April, the ending of winter and the beginning of spring. Okay? Some of y'all are going to come into unions. You're going to see a lot of people being dethroned and evicted. People who were occupying spaces and positions that they weren't supposed to be in are going to come up out of those positions because that's not their position. Okay? So you're going to be seeing a lot of that. Not just that. Look out for what it is God is bringing you into union for. Look out for what it is, what duty he has you set up to perform once you come into this union, once you come into this marriage, once you come into this friendship. All right? I love you guys. I hope this message blessed someone. I will be back with another word as soon as the Lord releases me. Take care.